An astonishing weekend in the UK as the egregious two-tier policing under slippery Starmer has been exposed, alongside the chronic two-tier reporting of such events in the mainstream media. Sly News, the left-wing organisation owned by Comcast, like MSNBC in the US, sent an activist who has previously been exposed for her campaigning ex-posts to the Notting Hill Carnival to try and convince the world that it is just the event the UK needs to pull us all together after the horrendous so-called far-right riots. Watch.
And is this year particularly important because of what we saw earlier this summer in terms of the rioting across Britain?
Yeah, I think it is. I think people need to understand that the carnival is not going to cause any trouble. We are all coming together.
And is this...
Oh yes, she insisted. This is just the sort of event she would want in her part of London. All the crime, all the violence, that's just been stirred up by horrible liars like me, right?
Thank you so much for the intro. I'm also from Lewisham, and actually I wish we had something like this in South London. But it's great that we get to come across, right?
We're lit. Hey, yes, like I said, I go by the name of Unks. I just released a new single called Remember, so make sure you lot check it out. Thank you so much,
Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
Well, you can see that lots of people here enjoying themselves, and people in all sorts of costumes. We've spoken to families where there are 3 generations of people here, grandmas, mums, and bringing their children as well. It is a really, really big event for London, but it doesn't go entirely without trouble, and you can see from local businesses and homes, some of them are boarded up. But there are 7,000 Metropolitan Police officers policing this today, and we've seen a handful of arrests, but largely it's been a really peaceful and a really joyous day, this Notting Hill Carnival of 2024, which comes after a summer where there has been some violent disorder on streets, but mainly people talking about how this is important in trying to bring communities together, especially in a year like this. Thank you so much for the...
Oh yes, that terrible violent disorder. None of that at the Notting Hill Carnival, right? Until Sly News was struck in the face by reality.
Last hour, they've given us an update that they've made 38 arrests and recovered 4 knives. And they said a man believed to be in his 20s has been stabbed. His injuries are not life-threatening. But overall, it's been a really peaceful and enjoyable day for people.
Really peaceful, really enjoyable. Just the little stabbing. 3 stabbings now. 1 life-threatening. It's unbelievable, isn't it? If this were any other event, especially one for the white working classes of this country, it would have been shut down years ago. I mean, look at this extraordinary rap sheet released by the police after the family day on the carnival, meaning that things are only getting worse right now. 3 stabbings, including a 32-year-old woman now in a life-threatening condition, 90 arrests, 15 police officers assaulted, 10 assaults on emergency workers, 4 sexual assaults. You get the drift. But London's failed Mayor Sadiq Khan, who, let's be honest, has turned the city into a lawless hellhole. I know, I live here, I've been mugged twice under his rule. He claims that Carnival is the very fabric of our city and an amazing way to bring communities together. But this is the respect so-called revellers have for the police. Look at that. It really should be renamed Notting Hill Carnage, right? Notting Hill Carnage. And it should be shut down because what once might have been a cultural celebration has become nothing more than a costly hotbed of violence and crime that destroys a neighbourhood every year. But that wasn't even the worst of a weekend of shame for Sly News. I was absolutely furious when I was sent this clip of its newspaper reviewer Thea Usherwood expressing that the only concern about the barbaric likely ISIS terrorist attack in Germany that saw 3 innocents stabbed to death on Friday night was that it might embolden the so-called far right.
When you look at something like this, you just really worry about how it could be used by those on the far right to stir up hatred. To look at this and say, well, here's the justification. This is why this will be jumped on by those on the far right to say, well, there's some justification to our cause, and that's concerning. And nobody, ISIS is a terrorist organisation. This is plainly being treated as a terrorist attack, as it should be, and the police and authorities should be able to do their work and bring the perpetrator, whoever it might be, to justice. But I do, it is concerning, I think, that potentially the way, this could play out. We've seen the rise of the riots in Germany particularly, but also in this country and across Europe as well.
You know what, Yasmin, I saw on social media earlier people saying, what did this person look like? Now, were they asking to do a public service, so people keep an eye out if they are still at large, or were they up to no good in asking that question?
No, and as Theo says, the whole riots thing and how it was instigated. And look, I'm a Muslim.
When you look at...
There is just so much to pick apart there. It shows the extent of the dystopian post-truth world that we now live in, that the newsreader there, Mark Barbette, was actually suggesting that people should not be given the information about the physical characteristics of a terrorist on the loose, just in case it might be used for the wrong purposes. That's why we always hear about a man these days. Just a man. Just a man. That clip, when I posted it, went viral. And the reaction from some folk I respect a lot was heartening. Colin Bray, my friend and the former Sly News presenter who became a launch host of GB News because he was sick to death of that sort of madness, posted on X, after 9/11, there were a few years where news channels routinely and often illuminatingly interrogated the nature of Islamism. Now they feel their job is to soothe tensions, offer reassurance, and marginalise wrongthink. The latest accusation of Islamophobia has blunted debate. It's a really good point, isn't it? What is it going to take for us to have one of these real national conversations in the media? Another 9/11 atrocity? Harriet Sargent wrote, I was doing Sky News press preview a few years ago when reports came in of an ISIS attack. The presenter and left-wing pundits' first priority was how this might fuel the far right. When I spoke up for the victims, it was as if I'd mentioned a dirty word. So this is quite clearly a systemic problem within the MSM. Summed up hilariously, actually, by this meme, suggesting Sly News would blame the dinosaurs going extinct, the meteor on the far right if it had a chance. But the very serious side of this media manipulation was pointed out by Star Daily Telegraph columnist Allison Pearn, one of the few sane voices left in the MSM, when she wrote, there is a wary inevitability about these cases. Atrocity committed, innocents murdered, police sideline and silence the bereaved lest they say something quote-unquote hateful, i.e. true and justified. Media focuses on the far-right response to wicked, misogynistic, anti-Western killing to avoid awkward discussion about what these barbarous lunatics are doing in our country. Anyone who suggests barbarous lunatics are the root of the problem, not the barely existent far-right, is either smeared or, new improvement, arrested to shut down the conversation. Await the next massacre. Repeat. Well, I refuse to do that. So I promise to have the outspoken conversations about these issues because that's the joy of being independent. So let me share with you two views on this you won't hear represented elsewhere in the MSM. It was actually my superstar panellists today, June and Leilani, who pointed this out to me. The Foreign Minister of the UAE warning 7 years ago where the West was heading.
And let me say this in English so you can understand what I'm saying.
I have translation.
No, I know you have translation, but I just want to make sure you get it right. There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of the lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance.
Well, he was right, wasn't he? Then there's the former Met detective Peter Blacksky, revealing in his very un-PC way, which I love, why the sort of carnage we've seen this weekend at Notting Hill Carnival is repeated time and again.
Nobody died in the riots. 3 people died of knife crime this weekend alone. Lock them up! Really? How you getting on with county lines? Well, we closed 3 down last week. Yeah, and guess what? 4 more started. It's all bollocks. If I was policing an area where young black men were being stabbed to death by young black men, I'd spend each and every working day stopping and searching young black men. We cannot carry on with this madness, with so many lives being lost, with so many... Nobody died.
They will immediately drag those accused of the stabbings at the Notting Hill Carnival through the justice system at warped speed. They'll post their pictures all over social media. They'll run videos showing them being arrested if they got away from the carnival. Then they'll hold a press conference demanding that the event never be held again. I won't hold my breath. But to discuss this further, let me finally introduce today's superstar panel. And I'm delighted to be joined for the entire show today by 2 of my favourites, the YouTube sensation June Slater and social commentator Leilani Dowding. So, June, let's start with the Notting Hill Carnage. Can you believe that Sly News is still trying to say that this event is mostly peaceful?
Well, I got a message today from one of my followers who just put Sky News, and they couldn't believe it. They just could not believe that they were reporting about Notting Hill as though, oh, well, someone's fallen off a slide, someone tripped up when they were buying themselves a candy floss. They talk about it like incidental events. They, you know, as the copper said, nobody died in the riots. Damage was done. It's totally out of order. We know that. But Notting Hill Carnival is presented as this family time. I mean, it's not something I'd ever want to attend. And I think the way the behaviour is, you know, I'm 66. I don't want to see a woman getting away with twerking a big fat backside to a policeman who just stands there and takes it. It's horrible. I don't want to see it. And I don't want to think that people, you know, as he said, the thing is, this narrative, this sanctimonious narrative is dangerous. You know, they should be stopping people and searching them. That will stop them carrying knives because they're going to get searched. There's no threat to stop bad people doing bad things because the police are governed by a higher body. You know, you've got Khan, you've got now a prime minister that's like Stalin, who they're just deflecting the poo all the time. Nothing sticks. It's not our fault. You know, it's the far right. And anything to do with any mixed race events, it all goes according to plan. And if there's a stabbing, we'll just keep it under wraps. We'll play it down. Well, people aren't stupid. And that's the biggest insult. Sky News are absolutely rude to their audience because their audience, which they're losing real double fast, knows what's going on. We're not stupid.
First, though, what's so important about being independent is that I only tell you about products that I use. And one of them, every day, is Verso. I started it as I entered my 40s and realized that I wanted to stay healthy. And after being pretty stressed over a year, I wanted to be fit, I wanted to be sharp, I wanted to sleep really well, and I was looking for something that would enhance what I was already doing. And that's what's so brilliant about Verso, because scientists like David Sinclair have actually proven that we can now help to reverse aging with interventions that go beyond healthy habits. So I was looking for that sort of product, but also one that was backed up by really solid scientific evidence. That is certainly the case with Cellbean by Verso. It is scientifically proven to contain ingredients that fight effects of aging because they increase the NAD plus levels, which is the stuff that powers every cell in your body. I've been taking the product for a number of months now, right at the start of my day, and it has been genuinely transformative. Fasting is easier, but the team at Verso tell me that it is due to its blood sugar regulating effects, which lead to fewer cravings. I'm sleeping better, waking up with more energy, and feeling so much happier too. It's taken years off me, and I would love you to experience the same thing. So if you head right now to buy.ver.so/outspoken, you will save 15% on your first order. All you need to do is use the coupon code outspoken. The link is in my YouTube description. But Leilani, should the Notting Hill Carnage be banned?
Well, I think that you can tell that the media, the government, and the police obviously hold the Notting Hill Carnival to such low expectations that it's almost okay that if there's 3 stabbings and somebody's in life-threatening condition. This was a lady who had gone with her child on family day, who is now in life-threatening condition, and the media just gloss over it. It's like, it's okay, it's Notting Hill Carnival. Now, as you said, if this had been anything else, if this had been a St. George's Day parade, can you imagine the fuss that would have been made if it had been Tommy Robinson's rally, which I actually went to, and it was peaceful. There was singing. It was a lovely, peaceful thing. There were, maybe 100,000 people there. It was massive. No problems at all like this. Now, it's not just stabbings. Yesterday, Family Day, there were also 4 sexual assaults that occurred that people got arrested for, knives, possession of weapons. So yeah, if this is 7,000 police have had to, then they're proud of it. They're proud that they put 7,000 police there. Like, put 20, just say we have to take all the police out of London and shove them all at the Notting Hill Carnival, and how wonderful that is. Yes, I do think that if it's going to be this dangerous, then it should be banned. I'm sure if it was Glastonbury, if it was a St. George's Day parade, if it was anything else, it would be completely banned. But yeah, as I say, they're obviously holding these people to such low expectations that, it's okay. We'll just gloss over it all.
And June, we're probably not even going to see these criminals, are we? We're not going to see the Metropolitan Police parading them around, making little music videos, shaming them, revealing their addresses online, because it feels like that was very much targeted at the folk who were at the so-called riots.
Well, the incredible thing about what's gone on with the rioting, which was dreadful, and to anybody listening, you shouldn't have done it. You're out of order. You've trashed the memory of those 3 children. The riots will be remembered before then. But let's get real here. People have been jailed and not allowed bail because of something they've written online. Show me a person who's not regretted something they've said, and I'll show you a complete liar. We all say things in the heat of the moment, and I'm not, it's not something I would ever say. But this is a woman with no criminal record. It's not broken the law as a small child who's been denied bail. Denied bail. She's got to sit with criminals on remand now. And that will be such a shock to the average person. There's a veteran, a decorated veteran who served in Iraq and Northern Ireland and Belize, I think. And he made some sort of video online. He wasn't actually at any protests. And he's been remanded until February the 25th. That's a sentence.
Yeah,
and yet
totally. And same with Lucy Connelly, who is the wife of the Conservative councillor, who made, a very grim post on X in the heat of the moment. But Leilani, the post did not specify any particular person, any particular location. It was a generic post, which she quickly regretted. She is remanded in custody. Now, that is ludicrous.
Deleted it. Now, the horrific thing about it is that I went down a bit of a deep dive. I'd seen somebody post judges' names with the sentences that they gave some of these protesters. The ones that I picked out were for non-violent things. So a guy wearing a St. George's flag, somebody that said something on Facebook, somebody that shouted at a police dog, somebody that made a chant, or they've posted on Facebook, something like that. So I picked those out of what this guy had posted. And then next to it, he posted about a paedophile that had been let off by the same judge. Now, I wanted to look through and make sure that it all tallied up, and I found the news articles. They're all on my Twitter, pinned to the top, actually, and it will show you what the judge sentenced a person for, like I said, chanting non-violent crimes. Online violence, the new definition by Keir Starmer, by the way, because violence is actually physical, but Keir's come up with this new definition that you can have this online violence, so changing words again. And then going back to it, there is a picture of the headline and then a link to the article where the judge has actually let somebody with child rape photos or has raped their niece or something like that you'll see the link there where those people have been given suspended sentences, which means they won't spend a single day in jail. And that has been given by the same judges that have put people away between 2 to 3 years. So when people say there's no two-tier policing, they're insane. It's right there and you can see it.
We can see it.
And it's the same, and it's the same as the reporting. I mean, it blows my mind. When you posted that of that guy on Sky News
Theo
turning it around and saying, we should be worried about the far right. This is what happens, when something like this happens, people start to worry about the far right. No, that's not my first thought. My first thought is, when's that going to happen again here? But again, just like what I was talking about, somebody was actually arrested for sharing memes saying, coming here soon. So are we not allowed to say that? Are we not allowed to express our concerns that these kinds of terrorist attacks are going to happen here in England? Are we not allowed to say that? Is that a crime? Is that being racist? Is that being Islamophobic? Because we're genuinely concerned about what might happen here. I mean, this is the insanity of what's going on in England right now. And I don't think people around the world could probably grasp how crazy it's got with what you're not allowed to say and the twists and turns and mental gymnastics to try and blame the far right for literally anything.
Well, they're trying to create the far right.
Yeah, well, it's exactly. Yes. And the thing is, June, Leilani's completely right to call out Theo Usherwood. What's so worrying about this guy, though, is that he is booked now constantly and consistently on GB News and Talk TV to provide apparently impartial journalism, which he doesn't do simply because he's an ex-LBC guy. They trust him. He comes from the mainstream media. I'm sorry, the fact that his first thought was to try and worry about the far right after 3 German innocents had been stabbed by an ISIS terrorist says so much.
Well, the thing is, what people are forgetting here, it doesn't matter who's hired him, the audience will turn their back on him, because the audience that GB News and Talk TV attract are the same people that listen to you and those that listen to me. The people who have had enough of it, they've had enough of being gaslighted by the media and the government. And I couldn't believe he'd said it, because I thought, hang on a minute, this is a group of people, the media and the government, that are completely ignoring the primary problem. And the primary problem is the extremist attacks. And while you ignore that and concentrate on the reaction, his words were, we have to be careful of the reaction from the far right. So you can't have a reaction until you've had an action. So let's look at what the action is that's causing the reaction. That's the primary problem. Yes. And they're not looking at it. And until you look at that, the reaction will always be fueled by anger, because what we want is to feel safe. Now, if he'd sat there in this broadcast and said, yet again, it's understandable how tempers get frayed, it's understandable how people get concerned, because this is yet another attack in a Western town that doesn't deserve to be treated like this. If we heard that, people watching it would calm down. They'd sit and listen to it, and they'd be calm about it. Instead, what happens is they're frustrated, ordinary people. It's not the far right, it's the British public. They're sick of being the ones that are having to watch these people with a bigger platform broadcasting to thousands of people an opinion that's being driven by an agenda, because you cannot have a reaction unless you've had an action first. Totally. And if you concentrate on the action, you'd calm everything down. It's a ripple effect.
Oh my goodness, June, I could not agree more. And we saw it again this weekend. I mean, thank goodness for X in a way, because we are actually getting to witness the crimes ourselves, and then the pressure is put on the police. But it was this terrible incident of this guy who was slashed in the neck in the West Midlands. Now, I'm not going to show you the video. It's too graphic for YouTube. But the West Midlands police put out the most bizarre post on X about this. They said, we are aware of false reports that the victim was pushing a child in a pram at the time of this attack. This is not the case. The victim had a trolley of belongings with him at the time, and no children were involved. And it's like, I don't care about that. I care about the fact that these 2 men have slashed a guy in the throat for no particular reason. and the absolute scum of the earth are filming and laughing and watching rather than try to help this guy, which to me suggests that there is now complete lawlessness on our streets.
Well, if you look at northern France during the migrant crisis, this is what happened there. And it all kicked off. And the only thing that the authorities would do there in the European Union was try to stifle the fact that people were worried. I've seen them running rampage. I've been attacked myself at Calais. You don't get rid of the problem by ignoring it. It's just madness. And as you say, that's such a secondary thing. Oh, it wasn't a baby in the pram. No, there's a guy bleeding from the neck. Had that knife been a quarter of an inch further along, it would have been a fatal bleed. He wouldn't have been walking away. He would have been on the floor. Would they still be filming? Would the police still be putting a statement out saying, oh, don't worry, the guy dying on the floor was only pushing his belongings. There was no child in the pram. Oh, well, that's all right. We do feel a lot better. They're losing touch with the reality with how people want to be treated. We're adults. We know what's going on. We know we have a problem. And I'm sure 90% of the people who are of this faith that we talk about, this is not this incident with the knife, don't want to live like that. They just want to get on with their lives. But you cannot pretend any society is all good. And until you acknowledge the bad apples in the barrel, the rest will rot. It's as simple as that. Absolutely. So what you have to do is address the bad. Everybody in all societies, no matter how wonderful you think you are, even the Dalai Lama, you will have people in your society that are not good. And until we acknowledge that, address it, then the anger will brew.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please do subscribe if you want lots more clips and interviews like that. Plus, if you want to watch our totally uncensored after show, then visit www.outspoken.live.